Atlantic is a graveyard that never closes its gates. In the winter of 1952, a steel cargo ship named the Blue Star didn't just hit a storm, it hit a wall of water so tall it blocked out the stars. As the engines failed and the hull began to crack, 40 sailors prepared to die. But one man, a young navigator named Elias, held a secret in his trembling hands, a tattered letter from a dead man that claimed there was a hidden door through the ocean's teeth, a door that no map had ever dared to draw. And today, he would either find that door or become another ghost in the deep. Elias wasn't born for the sea, he was forged by it. In the salt-crusted docks of Gloucester, Massachusetts, the name Elias was synonymous with tragedy. His father was lost in the massive storm of 1938. His older brother never returned from the brutal wars of the Pacific. By the time he turned 21, Elias was the last man standing in a family of widows. Every time he stepped onto a deck, he felt the ghosts of his kin watching from the dark water below. On this cold December night, Elias stood on the bridge of the Blue Star. He wasn't just checking the compass, he was scanning the horizon for the monster he knew was coming. The atmospheric pressure had dropped faster than a stone in a well. The older sailors, men with skin like cracked leather and eyes filled with salt-weary wisdom, were whispering in the shadows. They called it a black gale, a storm so cold the spray turns to ice before it even hits the deck, weighing the ship down until it sinks like a heavy brick into the abyss. "Elias!" the captain's voice cracked over the rising roar of the wind. Captain Miller was a sea legend, a man who had survived 1,000 gales, but tonight even he looked small against the vast, bruising sky. "The rudder isn't responding. We're drifting toward the shallows of despair. If we hit those jagged rocks, the ocean will lip the ship open like a tin can, and we won't last 5 minutes in that frozen water." The ship groaned as a massive 60-foot wave crashed over the bow, shattering the heavy glass of the bridge. Freezing seawater poured in, drenching everyone. Men were screaming, clutching on to bolted tables as the entire world tilted 45 degrees. The engine room reported 6 feet of water. The end wasn't coming, it was already here. Elias ducked into the chart room, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He pulled out a small, waterproof tin from his inner pocket. Inside was a letter from his grandfather, a man who had survived a legendary storm in these same waters back in 1898. People claimed the old man was a sorcerer of the sea, a man who could talk to the waves. The letter didn't contain simple coordinates, it contained a riddle for survival. When the moon is hidden and the rocks grow teeth, look for the whitethroat. Where the waves break backwards, the path is narrow, but the water is deep. Trust the current, not the wind. "Captain," Elias shouted, stumbling back onto the bridge as the ship pitched violently. "My grandfather, he found a gap in the shallows. It's called the Ghost Channel. It's a natural trench that only opens when the pressure is this low." Miller gripped the railing, his knuckles white with strain. "That's suicide, son. No ship has ever passed through the shallows and lived to tell the tale. It's a maze of jagged granite and death." "We're already dying, Captain," Elias roared over the deafening thunder. "Let me take the wheel. Give me 10 minutes or give the ocean our souls." Miller hesitated for a heartbeat, looking at the terrified faces of his crew, then stepped aside. Elias grabbed the massive iron wheel. It vibrated with the raw fury of the Atlantic. He closed his eyes for a single second, picturing his grandfather's words, "Where the waves break backwards." He steered the massive steel ship directly toward a terrifying wall of white foam, where the water seemed to be boiling in a chaotic whirlpool. The crew watched in absolute horror, some closing their eyes in prayer. They were heading straight for the rocks. "Hard to starboard!" Elias screamed, his muscles tearing under the immense pressure. The ship leaned so far the masts almost touched the freezing water. Crack! The hull scraped against a hidden ledge. The sound of metal on stone was deafening. But then, suddenly, the ship leveled out. The chaotic waves turned into a powerful, focused current. They were in the White Throat. It was a canyon of water, barely wider than the ship itself. On either side, black, jagged rocks rose like the ribs of a dead whale. One wrong move, 1 inch of deviation, and 40 families would receive a telegram saying their husbands were never coming home. Elias didn't look at the rocks, he looked at the compass. He felt the ship's rhythm in his bones. He wasn't navigating anymore, he was dancing with the devil, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid. By 4 a.m., the roar of the storm had faded into a dull hum. The Blue Star emerged into the calm, open waters of the bay. The sun began to bleed through the heavy gray clouds, painting the battered, salt-stained ship in shades of gold. The crew stood on the deck, covered in salt and ice, staring at each other in disbelief. They were alive. Elias let go of the wheel. His hands were locked in a claw-like grip, blue from the biting cold. He pulled the letter from his pocket one last time. The ink had blurred from the seawater, but the last line was still clear. The sea doesn't kill men, Elias. Fear does. The channel was always there. You just had to be brave enough to look for it. We all face our own black gale, a moment when the engines of our life fail and the rocks are closing in. In those moments, we look for a map, a sign, or a miracle. But the truth is, the way out is already inside us. Elias didn't survive because he had a magic map. He survived because he refused to let the fear of sinking stop him from steering. Because the storm may be loud, but your resolve must be louder.